Current GOP presidential candidate and former Vice President Mike Pence says that the latest indictment of former President Trump by special counsel Jack Smith reminds us that, quote, anyone who puts himself over the Constitution should never be president of the United States. The indictment mentions the former vice president or his office more than 100 times in its 45 pages and quotes from notes that he took about conversations with the former President Donald Trump. The one-time allies are now facing off in the 2024 presidential race, and the former Vice President Mike Pence joins us now from his home state of Indiana, where he is fresh off a speech. Mr. Vice President, good to have you with us today. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on, Martha.
You know, so obviously when we have spoken in recent weeks, it's been about the issues of this campaign, and I do want to ask you about that. But obviously this is a big story yesterday, and you have been obviously involved in it. Yesterday you said that you'd have more to say about the indictment when you had a chance to review it. So what do you say about it today, now that you've had that opportunity, sir?
Well, Martha, let me say on January 20th, 2017, I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution. It was a promise I made to the American people, but it also ended with a prayer, so help me God. And all 4 years, all the way up to that fateful day on January 6th, I kept my promise that I made to Almighty God and to the American people. And I think yesterday's indictment will stand either on its own merits or it will fall. I can't really speak to the legal arguments behind it, but I think the American people deserve to know that on that day, President asked me to choose between him and the Constitution, and I chose the Constitution, and I always will. And I want the American people to know, as I stand for the Republican nomination for President of the United States, that I'll keep faith with the Constitution. And I do believe that while there has been weaponization at the Justice Department, and we certainly lived through it through the Trump-Pence years, that at the end of the day, history will hold Donald Trump accountable for his reckless words and actions on that day. And I'll always stand by the truth of that and make sure the American people know why I did what I did, Martha. I mean, I had no right to overturn the election. And despite the fact that President Trump has continued to insist that over the last 2.5 years, I want people to know that I stood strong on the Constitution that day, by God's grace, and I always will.
You know, you may have heard his attorneys last night saying that this is a free speech discussion, that's all it was, and that all they asked you to do was to just take a pause that day. John Eastman emailed your legal counsel stating, I implore you to consider one more relatively minor violation of the Electoral Count Act and adjourn for 10 days to allow the legislators to finish their investigations and a full forensic audit of what he called the massive amount of illegal activity that has occurred here. They're saying all you needed to do was just take a pause. What do you say to that?
I say that's completely false, and it's contrary to American history, to our Constitution, and to the laws of this country. And I never considered it, Martha. Look, from the first time I heard speculation that as vice president I'd have the authority to overturn the election by returning or rejecting votes, I frankly dismissed it out of hand. Look, the founders of this country had just won a war of independence against a king. And I was confident as a student of American history that those founders would have never vested the vice president or anyone else with unilateral authority to decide what electoral college votes to count and which not to count. I was clear on that throughout. I was clear with President Trump throughout, all the way up to the morning of January 6th. But let's be clear on this point. It wasn't just that they asked for a pause. The president specifically asked me, and his gaggle of crackpot lawyers asked me to literally reject votes, which would have resulted in the issue being turned over to the House of Representatives, and literally chaos would have ensued. So, well, Martha, people can read the indictment, and frankly, I've said before, I had hoped it had not come to this point. You know, I don't know if the government can meet the standard, the burden of proof beyond reasonable doubt for criminal charges. But the American people deserve to know that President Trump and his advisors didn't just ask me to pause. They asked me to reject votes, return votes, essentially to overturn the election and to keep faith with the oath that I made to the American people and to Almighty God, I rejected that out of hand, and I did my duty that day.
Well, you say, you know, the criminal process is separate, but put yourself on that jury for just a moment. If you were on the jury, would you say that this defendant, the former president, had committed a crime that day? Do you believe it rises to the level of a crime?
Well, you know, Martha, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I don't know the full case in chief that the government has. And I think I've said on your network many times that, you know, I don't know if taking bad advice from lawyers is a crime. But, you know, I would leave that legal process. And frankly, the profound issues about the First Amendment to the courts to sort that out. But look, I think it's important that the American people know what happened in the days before January 6th. President Trump demanded that I use my authority as vice president, presiding over the count of the Electoral College, to essentially overturn the election by returning or literally rejecting votes. I had no authority to do that. And frankly, Martha, it seems to me that some of the argument that I hear coming between the lines from his lawyers is something of a concession that he may have gotten bad advice, that he was just taking advice from his attorneys. But look, you know I did the right thing that day. I'll always stand by it. It was a tragic day. But again, by God's grace, with my family at my side, with my key advisors at our side, and with the courageous work of law enforcement at the Capitol, we quelled the violence, we reconvened the Congress, and completed our work. The only job the Constitution gives the Vice President of the United States in that role is to preside over a joint session of Congress where the Electoral College votes that are certified by the states are opened and counted. The Constitution, Martha, literally says they shall be opened and they shall be counted. And the Electoral Count Act, adopted more than 150 years ago, also specifies the amount of time and the procedure. I was going to make sure that we heard any objections and we heard any evidence that people wanted to bring forward to support objections. But the idea that I, as vice president, had the unilateral authority to overturn the election had no basis in the Constitution, no basis in history. And I want the American people to know that. And I'll continue to stand on the principle that I did my job that day by God's grace.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.